In this video, we'll go over boundaries, what they are, what are healthy ones, and how to establish them. Boundaries are limits that someone puts in place for how others should act or behave around them. Boundaries can either be healthy or very poor. Healthy boundaries take responsibility for your own emotions and actions, while not taking responsibility for the emotions and actions of others. And poor boundaries do the exact opposite. Everyone has boundaries. The key is to make sure that they are healthy ones. You can have boundaries surrounding your personal space, sexuality, emotions, possessions, time, and also your energy. There are 3 solid benefits to having healthy boundaries. The first benefit is that it promotes your self-esteem. Having healthy boundaries makes yourself a priority, and this promotes self-love and self-care. It also makes you feel more safe in your relationships, thus making you more confident in them. The second benefit is that it helps conserve your emotional energy. Your emotional energy is precious, especially if you're dealing with anxiety and depression on a daily basis. There is a small reserve for emotional energy for people who do suffer from anxiety and depression. So it's important that we conserve it for those people who deserve it most. So you can actually set boundaries on how much emotional energy you can spend on certain people. Give your spouse, for example, the most emotional energy and support, while your coworker doesn't necessarily need you to listen to them as they vent about their day for an hour. The third benefit is that it helps promote independence. When you stand up for yourself, you feel more confident because you know that you can survive on your own and that you can take care of yourself. And taking care of yourself is a very independent thing to do. It's important to have healthy boundaries. And you're probably wondering by now, how do I set them? Well, I have a few tips that you can use so you can start setting your healthy boundaries today. The first tip is to start small. You don't need to start tackling those big issues, especially if you're not comfortable setting boundaries quite yet. For example, you can start with the fact that you're not a morning person and you'd rather people not talk to you until you've had that first cup of coffee because you tend to be a little agitated when you first wake up. Make that clear, be direct, and let people know that that's what you need in the morning and enforce it. The more and more you practice these small boundaries, the more and more confidence that you'll start to build up, and you'll be ready to tackle those big ones in no time. The second tip is to don't feel guilty. And I know for those that deal with high levels of anxiety, this can be an issue. Especially for me, I have social anxiety, and a lot of things behind that is that I worry way too much what other people think of me. While it's important to take other people's feelings into consideration, it's not necessary that you worry about every single person that you ever meet on the street and what they're going to think of you if you do a certain thing by having your boundaries and sticking to them. It's not selfish to have boundaries. It's a way that you can keep yourself safe and to conserve your emotional energy like we talked about earlier. The third tip is to seek support. And support could look like a friend, a family member, your spouse, a counselor, a support group, or even a group on Facebook. We have a group on Facebook called the Butterflies Project Support Group, where you can reach out to others who also suffer from anxiety and depression, and also talk about the videos and blog posts and the homework that I give out each week. It's important to find support so that you can have people that understand what you're going through and understand that you're trying to set boundaries, and that they can be an accountability partner and help you with creating and keeping those boundaries firm. Which leads me to the fourth tip, which is be firm. It's very easy to set these boundaries, but it's not easy to maintain them. So you can say, I have this boundary, I need this to happen. But if someone pushes up against those boundaries and starts testing them, and you don't push back and let them know, hey, this is where that line is, then that boundary does you absolutely no good. Boundaries only work when you enforce them and when you're firm about them. Now, a little caveat here. It is important to take other people's boundaries into consideration, especially if you're in a romantic relationship or a very close friendship. It's important to make compromises where necessary if boundaries conflict against each other. So just make sure your communication stays open and that you're very understanding of the other person's situation when you're talking about boundaries of each person. You can always reach out to me on thebutterfliesproject.com or on my Facebook page, The Butterflies Project. And always remember that you are not alone, and I appreciate you. See you next week.